Hey guys! In this video, I want to give you 3 steps that can help you level up your game in terms of involvement in local politics. So if you've seen my last few videos, they talked a lot about how we can all get involved in the efforts for police reform. With today's video, I kind of want to connect the dots into another portion of that plan that is just as important as protesting, and that's getting involved in local politics. Now, local politics, it doesn't necessarily spring up as something that is exciting or fun. When you think of local politics, you might be thinking boring, confusing, draining. Where do I begin? And honestly, I'm here to tell you that that is not your fault. Recently, I've been volunteering with the Grassroots Law Project, and as a part of that volunteer effort, we've been contacting our local elected officials to let them know that we're looking for police reform and want them to make a pledge for justice. Now, during that effort, I stumbled across information that I honestly had no idea existed in my everyday life as a resident of my state. This information is not accessible. We need to remember that our government is an institution, and like many other old institutions, they do not like change. They do not stay up to date with the trends, and in addition to that, they have zero incentive to try and communicate to their audience in a channel that represents them. Plenty of us have heard that it is extremely important to get involved in local politics, to make sure you're voting not just for the president, but also for all of your elected officials that impact your community, that impact your districts, that impact your state. But there never is enough information about where we can find resources to actually be more informed on this topic in a way that is easy for us. Unfortunately, we just got to figure it out, because as of right now, the old guard is still very much in power, and they have zero incentive to meet us halfway. Step 1, find out who your elected officials are. Now, this may seem like a no-brainer, but it actually isn't quite that straightforward. And to be perfectly honest, the only reason why I now know who my state district senator is, as well as my representative in the Mass legislature is because of my involvement with the Grassroots Law Project. I had to find the contact information for local officials, and during that process, I happened to stumble across a directory with this contact information. And in the state of Massachusetts, apparently, there is a My Legislature website that you can go to that will tell you specifically, based off of your address, who your actual local elected officials are. As a reminder, I stumbled upon this completely by accident. That is a problem. This should be easily accessed information for everybody. As easily as I know my home address, I should just as easily know who my representatives are at the local and state levels. Now, continuing in this conversation about how inaccessible this information is, state websites are ugly. They are terrible to navigate. And no shade to mass.gov, but it is not user-friendly. I'm sorry. And I still have no idea how the My Legislature page actually connects to the mass.gov website, if it even connects at all. I have no clue. But I'm going to include the My Legislature page in the description box below for anyone who lives in Massachusetts who's watching this video, so you can sign up for an account, fill in your address, and figure out who your actual local officials are. It's actually a pretty cool site. You can keep track of the bills that they're on and that they're pushing forward, as well as other bills that are being sent into the Mass Legislature and progress on those bills too. So it's a really great place to find more in-depth information about what's actually going on at the local and state levels, but still not that great in terms of user friendliness, especially if you're brand new to the political sphere. Reading bills is for the birds, but unfortunately, this is a skill that we're probably going to have to try and pick up on in 2020. For anyone who doesn't live in Massachusetts, I'm going to try and include some resources in the description box that can help you find out this information as well. Honestly, if you can't find anything to help you out with this, I would recommend figuring out what your district and ward is, and you usually find this information out when you're trying to look at where you can vote, and then working backwards from there to figure out who the local and state representatives are for those areas. Next, once you've figured out who these people are, you have to follow them on all available platforms. How I did this was I basically Google searched their names to find their official web pages, and from their official web pages, I signed up for email newsletters if they had them, and I also figured out what social media platforms they're on. Now, for most of these officials, Twitter's king. So if you don't happen to be very active on Twitter, you're kind of going to want to get onto Twitter to figure out what these people are communicating and what they're doing in the community. They are non-existent for the most part on Instagram, unfortunately, because that is a huge platform for our demographic. They're also still on Facebook. So yes, Facebook is still alive and breathing. And if you want to know what the hell is going on in your communities, you're kind of going to want to check Facebook and Twitter. And then once you've followed your officials on all of these different platforms, you're kind of going to want to social media stalk them. Figure out what they've been working on. See what they've been posting. See what community events they're posting that they were at. Figure out what issues they're silent on. For instance, is it crickets on their pages in terms of Black Lives Matter and police reform? These are things you're going to want to keep into consideration when you're at that voting booth. Next, contact them. Once you have their information, contact them by email or phone, slide into those DMs, whatever you need to do to introduce yourself, let them know that you're in their district, and also find out what it is that they're trying to do to help improve your life, to improve our lives as a community. Ask them what they're doing about the issues that you care about. And then once you've reached out, take note of who actually responds to you, because silence is also key here. If they are not willing to reach back out to you as a voter, then that speaks volumes about what they actually care about. When I was sending emails about police reform, I actually got a response from my district senator, and it was actually really nice. It wasn't technically from her, it was actually from her chief of staff, but I know that that's a common practice as well. And don't be afraid to reach out to your elected official. They get a paycheck because they work for you. If you had an assistant who never reached out to you about things that they were working on to help you with, never helped you with anything, never communicated with you in a way that you needed to, and never actually gave you results, would you keep giving them free money? No. Hashtag fired. And that's the mindset that we have to have when it comes to interacting with these elected officials. We need to make sure that they understand that they work for us. And so we need to be telling them what it is that we want. And if they aren't able to provide, then we'll remember that when it's time to hit the polls. 2020 is a huge election year, and not just for the president, but for a ton of different positions at the local and state level. So you're kind of going to want to get informed now. It's now or never. And so I highly recommend taking the 3 steps that I outlined previously and putting them into action. If you are interested in how to volunteer or donate to the Grassroots Law Project, check out some of my other videos where I outline my experience with them. And if you kind of need a quick break from social justice, check out my last video as well. We all need it. We're human beings. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And so we need to make time to take care of ourselves and keep in place sustainable efforts to push the movement forward. And we do this by not only protesting, but also making sure that we're addressing issues in local politics as well. So, in my next video, I'm going to share my thoughts on the most recent debate that took place for the position of state senator for Massachusetts. And I'm also going to share my frustrations at the fact that I had missed the debate because I had no idea it was happening and I happened to find out about it by accident. I'm also going to share more tips on how you can connect the dots between the issues that you care about and actions you can take in local politics. So if you're interested in that, make sure you hit the subscribe bell to stay in the know. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. Please remember to take care of yourselves and each other, stay informed, and I'll see you later.